The real African growth story. If you think Africa's economy is one story, think again. In 2024, Sub-Saharan Africa grew around 4% by one major estimate. And yes, inflation is easing, and debt is stabilizing in many places. But more than 500 million people still lack electricity, and 2/3 of the world's extreme poor live here. This video looks past the hype and are doomed to map out the real growth playbook for the next decade: what's working, what isn't, and what to watch. Africa's next decade: real economics, real opportunities, a data-driven deep dive. The big picture: growth, prices, population growth. Sub-Saharan Africa's economy expanded by roughly 4.0% in 2024 and is projected near 3.8% in 2025 in the IMF's baseline. The World Bank's April 2025 update puts 2025 near 3.5%, with momentum toward 4.3 in 2026 -27 as inflation cools and investment normalizes. Different models, similar direction, a slow but improving recovery. Prices median inflation in the region fell to around 4.5% in 2024, a big relief after the 2022 -23 shocks. Yet the IMF notes the median government debt ratio is now under 60% of GDP, still a headwind for some countries, but not the crisis picture for all people. Africa's population is young and growing. The UN's 2024 revision projects the continent to reach roughly 2.5 billion by 2050. That's a vast market and workforce if jobs and skills keep pace. Energy access: nearly 600 million people in Sub-Saharan Africa still lack electricity. That's both a constraint and a massive opportunity for grid, mini-grid, and cleantech investment. So, the engine is turning over. The question is, where does real, inclusive growth come from, and how do countries actually unlock it? AfCFTA's $450 billion potential. Coming later on the video: structural shifts since 2000. Since 2000, many economies diversified: more services, more telecoms and fintech, more light manufacturing, and stronger regional value chains. The 2020 shock set that back. Then the 2022 -23 global inflation cycle raised food and fuel bills. By 2024 -25, inflation eased, some currencies stabilized, and a wave of reforms returned, clearing arrears, improving FX allocation, upgrading revenue administration, and pushing trade facilitation to prepare for AfCFTA. Engines of growth: digital and services. Digital connectivity underpins productivity across sectors, from farmers checking prices to factories managing supply chains. As coverage expands and data costs fall, service sectors scale: logistics platforms, payments, telehealth, edtech, tourism, and business process outsourcing. Mobile finance has deepened inclusion in several markets, enabling micro-merchants and SMEs to transact, save, and access working capital. Tourism and creative industries are rebounding where connectivity and safety improve, lifting services, exports, and jobs. In Africa, digital first doesn't mean digital-only. Policy must complement markets. Engines of growth too: energy, industry, and agriculture power. With nearly 600 million still off-grid, energy is the growth bottleneck. Investing in generation and transmission or distribution, fixing sector finances, and unlocking private capital for mini-grids can lift productivity across the economy. Industry: competitive light manufacturing clusters: textiles, assembly, fertilizers, building materials gained from reliable power, trade facilitation, and industrial parks with plug-and-play infrastructure. Agri-food systems: most economies still depend heavily on agriculture for jobs. Value comes from better seeds, irrigation, storage, cold chain, standards, and regional trade that reduces post-harvest losses. Africa's real growth and potentials can be unlocked by re-strategizing and re-engineering the architecture of the continent economy using the model illustrated here. Diagram: power, productivity, investment, jobs, revenues, reinvestment. Trade and integration: AfCFTA. The African Continental Free Trade Area is the world's largest new free trade area by number of countries. Its first phase began in 2021. If fully implemented, World Bank analysis suggests it could lift regional income by about roughly $450 billion by 2035, largely from lower trade costs and better trade facilitation. That's not automatic. It requires the hard work of tariff schedules, rules of origin, digital customs, and standards. Implementation is advancing in stages. More than 50 countries have signed. Ratifications keep rising. A guided trade pilot has enabled preferential shipments among a growing set of participants, and the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System (PAPS) aims to make cross-border payments faster using local currencies. The prize is bigger intra-African trade and diversified value chains. Comment: which AfCFTA opportunity is biggest in your country? Logistics, manufacturing, or services? Money matters. Debt, FDI. Remittances. Debt and macro. After the shocks, many governments are rebuilding buffers. Region-wide, the median debt ratio sits below 60% of GDP, but the distribution is wide. Some are in distress and restructuring. Others have market access and are issuing local currency or sustainable instruments. Investment, FDI and portfolio flows favor countries with steady macro policy, credible FX frameworks, competitive power tariffs, and efficient ports. Diaspora remittances remain a stable source of external finance that supports household demand and, increasingly, SME investment. People and jobs, skills, health, inclusion, demographics. A growing working-age population can be an asset if skills and jobs scale. That means basic education quality, relevant vet, and lifelong learning. Health and productivity. Preventive care and maternal or child health lift labor productivity and school outcomes. Inclusion. When women and youth can own assets, access credit, and move freely for work, economies grow faster. Removing legal and practical barriers pays dividends. Jobs are the bridge from growth to poverty reduction. Risks and headwinds. Conflict, climate, governance. Conflict and fragility concentrate poverty and deter investment. Safety. Rule of law and predictable policy or economic fundamentals. Climate shocks, droughts, floods, heat hit agriculture and infrastructure. Adaptation, irrigation, resilient roads, climate-smart seeds must scale now. Governance and delivery, from revenue to procurement to SOE reform. Decide whether reforms stick and services actually improve. What's the most practical governance reform you've seen work? Comment below. Country snapshots, patterns, not rankings. Different countries are proving pieces of the puzzle. Efficient borders, reliable power, digital public infrastructure, and skills pipelines. The lesson: focus on the bottleneck, fix it well, and the payoff is economy-wide. The playbook: 6 levers for the next decade. Power everything generation plus grids, plus market reforms. Clear cost recovery paths. Scale mini-grids where least cost. Lay the fibber and open the pipes. Spectrum policy. Open access backbones. Fair competition. Cut data costs. Protect data. Enable cross-border digital trade. Move goods faster. One-stop borders. Risk-based inspections. Bonded logistics. Trusted trader programs. And paperless customs. Skills at scale: foundation literacy or numeracy. Modern vet. Apprenticeships tied to actual vacancies. And recognition of prior learning. Finance the real economy. Deepen domestic capital markets. Prudent FX policy. Strong supervision. De-risk MSME lending and crowd in long-term investors. Rules that build trust. Predictable taxation. Procurement. SOE reform. Competition policy. And speedy commercial dispute resolution. Which lever ranks number 1 in your country? WHAT to watch in 2025 to 2027. Inflation and FX. Does disinflation hold and FX markets stabilize? AfCFTA. More products and countries trading under verified rules. Wider PAPS usage. Power projects, grid upgrades, cross-border interconnectors, and mini-grid scaling. Digital public infrastructure. ID. Payments and data exchange rails enabling new services. Climate finance. More adaptation finance and natural positive infrastructure. Summary: Africa's economic development is a story of contrasts, resilience and opportunity, alongside fragility and gaps. Growth is steadying around 3.54. Inflation is easing, and trade integration could reshape the continent's future. But challenges remain: 600 million without electricity, deep poverty concentration, climate shocks, and governance hurdles. The 6 levers for progress: power, connectivity, faster trade, skills, finance, and trust form a practical roadmap. The next 3 years, 2025 to 2027, are critical. Watch for disinflation stability, AfCFTA implementation, power investments, and climate adaptation financing. Above all, Africa's young population is its greatest asset if investments in jobs, skills, and opportunities scale fast enough. The key takeaway: Africa's development is not pre-written. With smart policy, resilient systems, and inclusive growth, the continent's next decade could be one of the most transformative in modern economic history. If you found this useful, help us push facts over myths. Subscribe, like, share, and tag your friends in policy, business, and organizations.